Welcome to the latest episode of First Word in Sport. I am one of your co-hosts, Luke Payton. This is James Roberts. James, how are you this week?
Very good, thank you, Luke. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Busy with all the shenanigans of the children and the end of term. Let's talk about Premier League that happened on Monday night. So we're recording this on Friday morning. On Monday evening, we saw Wolves get thumped 4-1 by Manchester United. Any overriding thoughts on that particular game?
Just relegate Wolves now. Just pointless them playing for the rest of the season, to be honest. 2 points from 15 games is the worst return, I believe, by any Premier League club at this stage of the season. They're on target for 6.5 points over the course of the season, breaking the Derby record back in the day for 11 points, I think they got. The first goal United scored sums up Wolves, really. An absolute, I don't even know what to describe it. It's not even schoolboy defending. It's worse than that. It's kindergarten defending. It's like what you see on a Sunday morning. It's terrible. And then it just snowballs. They get actually back into the game 1-1. But then United take charge in the second half and ran out comfortable 4-1 winners. It doesn't prove anything for United. They should win that game. They did win the game. And somehow they're up to 6 in the Premier League. But Wolves, they're relegated. Goodbye.
I think it's always vaguely amusing seeing all the memes about a triangle having more points than Wolves and all these sorts of things. But I take no pleasure in Wolves' struggles at the moment. That's a lie. If Villa have one less derby next year, that's great, to be honest. I think Wolves, it's just amazing how quickly they gave up in that game, in that second half. One aspect that's interesting for me would be Edwards in terms of, obviously that's 4 defeats in a row to start his tenure. He was obviously brought in with an eye to next season. And if they carry on in this vein, I think he'll be doing well to make it to next season. I don't think, you as a club, you need to have some sort of positive vibes going into next year. It might just be a few results here and there. It might be, in terms of playing players with a view to next season who you think will still be there. But I think as it looks at the moment, if they keep playing as they are, they're going to take quite a few beatings between now and the end of the season. And that might well start against Arsenal at the weekend. I think he could be struggling to be in a job this time next year at Wolves.
I don't know why he went there from Middlesbrough, apart from that he thought Wolves were a bigger club than Middlesbrough. Past player there at Wolves. Don't understand why he went there, and I don't think many people do, apart from himself. But wow. Can you imagine if they beat Derby's record? It would be some achievement. I mean, they only need 2 wins, essentially. But can you see them winning anything? They've got no confidence in the team. And look at the first goal, going back to it. They didn't even run back when the guy slipped over. They were just half-assed, jogging, not really caring. That's not a good sign at all, that they didn't actually want to run.
But that would be the worry for Edwards, is if you've got players not making the effort 4 games in for him, you would be worried. I mean, it is incredible if you think how many poor teams have been in the Premier League in recent times, and they would be the worst of the lot. I'm not sure they're quite that bad, to be honest, compared to some of the others. But
look at last year, Southampton got 12 points. The year before, Sheffield United got 16. Then Southampton got 25. Norwich 22. Sheffield United 23. Norwich 21. Huddersfield 16. West Brom in 2017-18 season went down with 31 points. Then you got Sunderland 24. Villa 2015-16, you remember that? 17 points. I thought chuck that in there for you, Lee.
That was
You have
grim.
to go back all the way back to Derby, was 2007-8 season. They got a grand total of 11 points. And Birmingham that year went down with 35. And they finished 19th.
What was Swindon back in it? Swindon had a crazy total one year, didn't they? I think they almost conceded 100 goals or something ridiculous.
Well, Sheffield United conceded 100 a couple of seasons ago. Swindon went down with 30 points, but 42 games. 42 games, yeah.
Wow. Okay, Champions League this week. There were some interesting games. So we had obviously Inter versus Liverpool. Liverpool won 1-0. We had Atalanta against Chelsea, with Atalanta winning 2-1. We had Spurs beating Slavia Prague 3-0. We had Arsenal winning 3-0 away at Bruges. We had Leverkusen and Newcastle 2-2. And we had Real Madrid, Manchester City, with Manchester City coming out on top 2-1. I think the most obvious place to start, James, would be the excitement and how happy you were for Liverpool and Slot with Liverpool's late winner against Inter. It's a pretty contentious game in terms of, obviously, Liverpool had a goal disallowed for handball, and then, an incredibly soft penalty at the end there, which Szoboszlai has scored. Thoughts on the game? Thoughts on Slot?
Liverpool played well. They went back to basics, went back to hard to be beat, less men ahead of the ball, same formation against Inter as Leeds. This 4 at the back still, and then a diamond in midfield with Isak and Ekitike up front. That combination didn't work. Isak and Ekitike, not one pass between them. They controlled the game. The goal for Konate should have stood, as they just made an error. Over 5 minutes of VAR. That's got to stop. If you don't make a decision within 90 seconds, then the on-field decision has to stand, in my view. The issue I have with VAR quickly is I don't understand why the referee in football just stands there in the middle of the pitch getting pelted from the players when they can clearly just go and watch the screens, the monitor, or talking to the VAR. Why are they waiting for that time? And then you need to come over to monitor. That's another minute wasted because they're going to change the decision anyway. Why not go away straight away, watch it like they do in other sports? Rugby, immediately, as soon as a call comes in from the TMO, they go to the screen straight away. NFL, they go to the screen straight away. In football, they wait, and then they go to the screen. Just go straight away. Anyway, moving on.
Just quickly on that VAR decision on the handball. I think what's worrying would be is that the referees clearly and VAR don't know what their own rules are.
Yeah.
Which is pretty shocking indictment on where we're at.
Yeah, the referee was soft all night. He was just poor all night. Just Inter players a couple of Inter lads were diving, but that's what happens in European football.
Good job. Wirtz has never dived in his life, right?
Why wouldn't you though? If you know in European football any pull in a penalty area is a penalty, you're going to go down. If you didn't go down, by the way, it's not a penalty. So it's good play from Wirtz to go down. But that's a foul anywhere else on the pitch. So anyway, European rules are different to Premier League rules. Answers on a postcard as to why that is, please, because that's just ridiculous. How we have different rules for the same game of football. Obviously, Szoboszlai puts it in. He's been Liverpool's best player this season by a country mile. The system change against Leeds was interesting. He continued it with a diamond. The only issue with this diamond is the 4 lads in midfield have to really, really work and have to have lots of legs. All 4 of them ran over 11 Ks. McAllister was up over 12 Ks. That's a lot of running. You have to carry a lot of the ball and you have to cover a lot of the grass. Asking your 4 midfielders to continually do that over a course of a few games starts getting tough. Into report, Liverpool get to their 12 points and back in the top 8 race. Has it changed my mind on Slot? No, not at all. Big game tomorrow against Brighton at home. I think Brighton will be far tougher test than Inter Milan proved on Tuesday night. They'll pose more problems with their movement. Mint on the right-hand side. Matoma might be back fit. Does it change how Liverpool play? No, they're going to play the same way, but it'd be interesting to see, obviously, if Salah's back. Probably a 50-50 call. I think the press conference was just happened. I haven't seen any news about that, what Slot said in that at all, so that will come out. But yeah, I wouldn't be confident as a Liverpool fan at home to Brighton, which is saying something these days.
I think
Brighton aren't in great form, but Liverpool are terrible.
I think Brighton are always interesting because, I mean, we saw their limitations against West Ham last weekend. They really struggle when the emphasis is on them to break teams down. And it's been that way now for quite a while. You know, they really struggle disproportionately against the weaker teams. They're much more comfortable against some of the better teams who'll come out and actually play, and they can hit them in transitions. And I'll be intrigued to see how direct they go against you, given that's some of the weaknesses that you've had this season. It'd be quite telling to see, you know, obviously formation change, whether, you know, some of those issues that you've had earlier in the season have been resolved. Obviously, it's, you know, it's only one game, but it feels like a proper test for Slot. But it'd be interesting to see.
There's no news there, really. Just said he's going to have a conversation with Salah this morning. Nonsense. He's already had that conversation, in my view. Of course, he's just managers lie to the press just to bat away the questions. So no real news there at all.
Let's talk about the Manchester City game. Obviously, Manchester City won 2-1 against Real Madrid. I saw Manchester City described as the best bad team in European football recently. And I think it sums it up quite well. I watched them. It feels like they're hugely flawed. Obviously, they have some, you know, high quality players, but I don't know. You watch that Madrid game; they were the beneficiaries of a howler from Courtois for the first goal, effectively a howler from Rudiger for the penalty in the second goal. I don't know. I just think they were not fortunate to win, but they're finding a way to get it done at the moment, but it doesn't feel sustainable, should we say?
Yeah, I watched the game as well. As soon as you could see on the betting action, Mbappe wasn't playing, although on the bench he clearly wasn't fit at all. The odds suggested that when you looked at it in the morning. Man City going to, they're not playing well at all. I don't know what they're trying to achieve there. I still don't like Núñez at right back. And I think they're a bit weak in midfield when they play Cherky, Foden, Bernardo, who was fantastic, actually. To be fair to him, Bernardo Silva's playing well at the moment. And Gonzalez and Doku. There's two. I just don't like that midfield. I don't think there's enough stability in that midfield. Harden doesn't touch the ball, although he missed actually a one-on-one when he should have scored. But yeah, but Madrid were a mess. I think we talked about it briefly, that would Alonso go back to his tried and tested 3-5-2, and he didn't. He went stacked with 4 at the back, which is not Xavi's way of playing. Look at through his history at the Madrid B team, he played 3 at the back. He played always 3 at the back at Leverkusen, which is 4-2-1.
Just quickly on that, I think injuries played a part in terms of they were absolutely decimated defensively, which really limits the options that he had in terms of whether he wanted to tinker with formations at the back and things like that. Really limited numbers wise.
Sure, but his game plan and his tactics and his theory on football is 3 at the back. And you can see that since the players have basically said a couple of months ago, we're not playing 3 at the back anymore. We're going to play 4 at the back. It's a poison chalice managing Real Madrid. You got Mbappe, and you probably got the most overrated player in world football in Vinicius Junior on the left-hand side, who just looks a shadow of himself. He looks like he's won the lottery to play for Real Madrid. He looks terrible, absolutely shocking. It's don't know what's happened to him taking money from Saudi if I was Real Madrid, but I thought Alonso would be under a lot more pressure yesterday. And it seems that a couple of players are backing him in public as well as privately. But Madrid were really bad. They were almost the level as Ancelotti bad against Arsenal in the Champions League at home when they lost. Yeah, I don't know what Xavi's going to do there. I don't think he'll get time. If he loses this weekend, he's definitely out. And then I think he needs to take some time off and come back again in the summer.
Would you take Alonso at Liverpool?
Not now. I think I need to wait until the summer. I'm very reluctant to take a manager from a big club, the biggest club in the world football, straight into another big club where there's major issues, structural issues in that club. No,
okay.
For the moment, is the answer to that question.
No.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like Liverpool. Probably got the players to play the 3-4-1-2. They need a couple of extras, but I think he's had 5-6 months at Real Madrid. It's quite a bruising time. You might want some time there just to reflect and just not go straight into another job that might go horribly wrong, and then your career is, you're on the back foot already. Might as well go and take some time out and relax.
Let's talk about Chelsea and Maresca. They obviously lost 2-1 away at Atalanta. Third poor result, third poor performance in a row for Chelsea. I'm not sure. I think Maresca is going to come under pressure sooner rather than later, I think. I don't think these owners are going to be... I'm not convinced that they're totally sold on Maresca.
Just won an All Club World Cup, so he's got some time there, surely.
Honestly, I'm not sure that competition shouldn't count for much, honestly.
Yeah, but to Todd Bowley, who's an American who knows very little about sport, and not sport, but football, soccer, that's got to keep him in some sort of in his good books kind of thing, surely.
I guess the proof will be. So, one thing I always find interesting at the start of the season is when you talk about expectations for various teams. So, for Arsenal, for example, I remember I wrote a tweet about this. And Arsenal start of the year, the expectation had to be for them to challenge for the title. And realistically, unless they come up against a incredible Liverpool team or City team, that this was Arteta's time where he had to go and win a league title, right? And then I remember talking about Chelsea with the amount of money that they've spent recently. Is the expectation for Chelsea had to be the clear third best team in the league, I think, with the amount of money they spent, where they finished last year, in terms of if they trying to progress to the next sort of level. And I think that's important in terms of having these sort of benchmarks in terms of expectations. They haven't had, I think if Chelsea don't finish as the third best team in the Premier League, I think they've had a poor season in the Premier League. It's not easy, but I think that is a sort of expectation that, certainly, obviously top four when you have Man City in there as well, but there was no reason for this Chelsea team not to be kicking on into the top 3 or 4, given the money that they've spent. And I think that's where Maresca has to be judged on, is where will Chelsea finish in those top 3 or 4 positions? And it's not a case of limping into the Champions League on the last day like last year. You have to see signs of improvement. Yes, they have a young squad, but it's a young squad that should be improving rapidly all the time. And the same applies to...
Excuse me. I don't think he's under pressure there at all. But I get your point in terms of if they're not up there comfortably in the top 3 or 4 and in the latter stages of the Champions League, forget the Mickey Mouse domestic cups that are going on. That's not what Chelsea Football Club is all about under these owners or anyone since Abramovich came in 25 years ago, or best part of. They're about winning the two big ones.
They have to see some progress in terms of
They have to
closing
see
the
some
gap.
progress, yeah. But they're not going to sack him mid-season at all, unless.
I'm not saying he'll be under threat mid-season. I think it's going to be an interesting season for him. I don't think finishing outside the top 4 is going to end in good things for him, should we say?
No, if he's not in top 4, then he's definitely gone. Yeah, but they've still got some good players. Chelsea have still got some good players. It'd be interesting to see how Palmer comes back into the team. We talked about it last week. Obviously, Casado's out this weekend, still a game. So yeah, it's a bad loss in Atalanta, considering now they've only got 10 points, I think, in the Champions League. It's kind of out of their hands getting the top 8. So that's an extra couple of games.
I was looking at it earlier. I don't think that they will finish. I'd be surprised if they finish top 8 now. I think what was interesting with the Champions League table is you got from Barcelona to Paris Saint-Germain is, I think, 15th place to 3rd place, and there's 3 points between them. So within that, you obviously have all the English teams apart from Arsenal. And it shows you how tight it is. So even if Chelsea win 2 games, I would suspect that isn't enough to get in those top 8 places.
Yeah, I think you need 18 this year. Last year, I think you boys got in with 16, didn't you? Came 8 from 16 points.
It's either 16 or 17, I can't remember.
I think you need 18 points to guarantee top 8 this year. And obviously then you don't have to play the 2 games in February, the playoff games.
So one thing which we didn't really mention a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the format for Champions League is it's the same in the Europa League, is that the top 2 teams are guaranteed to have the second leg at home all the way through to the semi-finals. So there is some incentive there for finishing the top 2. I mean, not massive, but there is something there this year.
Yeah, that makes a change from last year. But it's such a flawed thing for the Premier League, having 6 teams. They get a much easier draw. Look at Arsenal's and Tottenham's draw is relatively, you're playing Europa League teams relatively at times. Slavia Prague are rubbish. Bruges are rubbish.
I think they have to get
a lot of it's luck on that draw.
They have to get away from the situation where teams can't play other teams from their own country. It puts the English teams at a massive advantage, I think, not to have to play. Even a game. If you take Spurs or Newcastle as the weakest English teams, an away trip to either of those is harder than 90% of the other games that we've seen these teams play. I mean, Slavia Prague, are terrible.
There's a lot of rubbish in the Champions League this year.
Let's touch on Arsenal. Obviously, they made quite a few changes ahead of the trip to they play Bruges. Obviously, they've won easily. And I find it interesting, some of the sort of narrative about, obviously, we've had all the tiredness about Arsenal players. And I think one thing people miss the point is this Arsenal team that they had out against Slavia Prague is one that once Hincapi signs a permanent deal in the summer, which will happen, it's a team that cost them the best part of 400 million euros to assemble. This isn't some reserve team. It blows my mind that, how much credit people are giving Arteta for squad rotation and, what a tough time Arsenal are experiencing at the moment. It's a squad, a team that literally was about 400 million euros worth of players. And that doesn't even include your sort of generational youngsters that have come through like Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri.
Martinelli, yeah, there's 4. Yeah. Oh, look, they've got a very good squad. We talked about it, they've got 2 players in every position. Good luck trying to keep them all happy, though, because Jesus is back after 11 months after his ACL. He won't, he'll want to play because of the World Cup coming up next summer. Yeah, good luck. keeping them all fit. They should be winning games. Bruges are rubbish. Great goal by Makalady, the old Chelsea midfielder. But where's he going to play? Would he play him on the left?
He could do. So he's going to have a choice between. Again, it depends on what happens with Odegaard. So I'm not convinced Odegaard should be starting in that lineup.
But then who can play on that right side of the 8 then?
I'd be more tempted to play Rice and Zubimendi in the middle, right-hand side Saka, Eze in the middle with either Madueke maybe on the left.
Doesn't play that way. He plays a conventional 4-3-3 with Zubimendi, Rice at the left-hand side 8, and then he plays Odegaard on the right-hand side 8. I don't think you can play Eze on that right-hand side. He's never done it in his career. He's 27. He's a left-sided 8 where Rice plays. And we talked about it last week. He can't play that wide left role, in my view. It'd be interesting to see what they do.
So I think for that, it depends on the quality of the opposition a little bit. So if you want to be
Wolves, you could play anyone. Like, unfortunately, Max Dowman's injured now, but you could play the likes of him. It's like they'll win that game 1-0 or 5-0, depends what they want to do.
So one thing that Arsenal game did highlight a little bit was in terms of squad rotation, and actually saw it last night a little bit in the Europa League and Conference League. So Crystal Palace were playing who they're playing? They were playing Shelbourne. Right. So I spent quite a lot of time looking at all these various matches over recent days. Shelbourne, they wouldn't be a Football League team pretty much. And yes, it was important for Palace to get a win, but Palace have gone into that game with their usual back three of Guéhi, Lacroix and Richards. You've got the likes of Wharton in that lineup. Obviously, Mateta got rested. They've gone into that lineup with an incredibly strong team, relatively, for a game against pretty abysmal opposition. And I'm just always left with this feeling that whilst it didn't cost Palace last week against Fulham, I think it did cost them against Manchester United recently in terms of fatigue. I'm just amazed at what Glasner's doing in terms of flogging these players. And I think it would be either a reflection on a lack of trust in the rest of his squad, or it's a management style that I would worry about if he's at a big club.
Yeah, he continues playing his best players all the time. He doesn't, and they go away with him as well. It's not like they're staying at home in their own beds, etc. They're going on airplanes, different hotel rooms. Yeah, I didn't like to see Wharton playing at all with his injury history. My gaze playing against that lot, no idea. Considering they were moaning, obviously, about the Carabao Cup semi-final, having 4 games in 8 days. This is a game, surely you trust your reserves or your under 80 or whoever it is. You've got enough quality to beat Shelbourne. You do worry, as you say, going further forward. But maybe that's his management style. He'd rather get the players playing for fitness than training. I don't know. Some managers I know do like that. They'd rather matches to keep the repetitive ideas going and keep your body going rather than doing the training. But
I think what we did see as well last night, say even you take Villa's game against Bâle, is just how weak obviously, we talked about Champions League being weak. The standard of the Europa League is dreadful. And as for the Conference League, it's horrendous. I mean, the Europa League, Villa made 8 changes last night and they haven't got out of second gear. And they're winning away at a team who is unbeaten in 10 Europa League games type of thing. It was... the standard of the teams in that competition is not good.
No, it's not. The Premier League has got a lot of money, which is distorting where players are going. They're just following the money. I was interested to see actually Harvey Elliott's comments. Unai Emery's comments on Harvey Elliott, about him. Basically, he's not going to play for Aston Villa again, and they're going to have to come sort of agreement with Liverpool to send him back and paid a fine. I don't know the ins and outs of the deal, but there'll be some sort of fine. Thoughts?
So this is a story that, so this week was the first time that anyone from Villa has actually come out and said that Elliott doesn't have a future at Villa. I think what became really apparent early on in the season was that something was amiss. There were a couple of games early on where you were thinking, why is he not playing? And then, at the time of his transfer, there was a very strange stipulation in it that was that it would become a permanent transfer after 10 appearances. That's a it's not a clause for so few games that I can really remember with many other players. Now, I know you're obviously not a massive fan of Harvey Elliott, but so you were, as a Liverpool fan, you were quite happy to get rid of him. I was not thrilled at him coming to Villa, to be honest. Obviously, the situation in Villa changed a little bit in that it looked like Buendia was going to leave. He was obviously on loan in Germany last year. It didn't happen in terms of it becoming a permanent transfer. He's come back to Villa, and he's been like a new signing for Villa this season. Obviously, he had a very serious injury a couple of years ago, so there is a case of him getting back up to speed. But he's been a revelation, really, for Villa, and I think that's one of the main reasons why Elliott's time has been so limited. Is there just isn't the position or role for him in Emery's squad. And once Buendia came back into form, it just became really apparent that Elliott wasn't fancied. And obviously it's all complicated a little bit by Elliott having played a tiny number of minutes in one game for Liverpool at the start
of the season, yeah.
Which means then that he can't join another Premier League team. So either when he goes back in January, he either goes back to Liverpool or he'll have to go somewhere like Germany. But I think what's clear, no?
Can't go anywhere in European football, no. You can't play for another European team. You can only go to America or Saudi or another. Can't play for in the European leagues.
That's okay. You can welcome him back with open arms then.
Just pay us whatever it is, the £5 million that you have to pay us. But anyway, the point I bring up about Harvey Elliott, I like him as a player. He obviously loves Liverpool. He's a fan of Liverpool. I worry that these type of players have been marginalised in the Premier League, i.e. the Premier League is going to a place where you have to be big, physical, strong. You have to be able to run 12, 13 Ks a game, quick as well, and he just hasn't got that. He's just he's a small technical player. Yeah, he played well in the under-21s, but he should really. He played 150 Premier League games. It's not about age, in my view. It's about how many games you've actually played. Age is only a number. It's games at the top level. That under-21 team, James McAtee struggling at Forest to get a game. Omari Hutchinson can't really get a game at Forest. Kwanzaa had to leave. Obviously, Charlie Cresswell still in Toulouse in France, the centre-backs. So I worry about Harvey Elliott and those types of players that are kind of going out of the Premier League. They're not being trusted by managers because they can't get around the pitch. I don't really like it. I like these kind of technical players that can actually do something different rather than just being big and physical and strong and running into channels, etc. I like something different rather than just, having to be able to run 12 Ks at whatever speed you need to these days.
I think one of the problems as well is as you see a reliance or the importance of set pieces increase on both sides of the ball. Having your Elliott's of the world isn't ideal. Certainly defensively, it makes you a bit of a liability.
Yes, and not just his position. If you're fullbacks now, you've got to be over 6 foot because that switch and play that defenders do kind of thing. Yeah, it's going to. Yeah, he needs to go abroad essentially and go and play in Italy or Germany, which is no bad thing. No bad thing at all.
Well, I think the other thing. I think the other thing you see is that, success at international football doesn't translate overly well into Premier League football. So the standard of, European, that under 21 competition isn't amazing relative to, when players have to come back and play Premier League football, the standard of Premier League football is so much higher. And, the same applies for when you see Anderson, for example, tearing it up for England. When you're tearing it up for England against teams who would be League One, League Two, it really, it feels very hollow and isn't, truly representative of, the sort of achievements you might think they are.
Yeah, it's always overblown. International football, it's boring. I don't really watch outside, even European Championships or World Cup. I'm not really I can find other sports to watch at the same time.
Let's talk. Obviously, there was the World Cup draw this week, and obviously tickets have gone on sale. Massive markups, crazy prices. No huge surprise, I don't think.
Not at all. With FIFA running it, I saw some reports saying the FA should put out some statement today about the prices. We can complain all we want as fans. People will still go, that's the way of the life in football. We all know it. It's a bit of corruption going on. Happens, unfortunately. There's nothing we can shout from the rooftops as fans, but realism should kick in. We knew it was going to be expensive. It's what it is, unfortunately.
We also had the FA Cup draw this week. As usual, Villa got a horrendous draw away at Tottenham.
Where's that violin?
Honestly, it's absolutely insane, the third round draws we've had in recent years. I'm just surprised it wasn't Manchester United. So I think it was, 4 all Premier League games. There was Everton, Sunderland, Newcastle, Bournemouth, and United, Brighton as well. So
yeah, United another home draw. Everton not winning another cup again since 1995.
Who's counting, James? Who's counting?
Well, I
am. All right, I think that's enough football for now. Let's touch on other sports. We'll touch on Ashes cricket on Monday's show ahead of the third test on Tuesday. I think the only thing would add at this point is it looks like Hazelwood is out for the series. It looks like obviously Wood is out for the series as well. Any quick thoughts on those two?
Hazelwood's a big loss for Australia. He's a brilliant bowler. Wood was never fit. It was a strange decision to take and put your eggs in his basket. He's 35. His body's going to break down. He's got a history of breaking down. Yeah, they've got 3 games in essentially 3 weeks coming up, maybe. But we'll do more of a bit of a preview on Monday's show when we know more of it. Again, I can't see how I said on Monday, I can't see how England are going to win a test in Australia. They've improved their team with Cummins and Lyon back. The wheels could be off. The more and more I think about those comments from McCullum and Stokes, they were polar opposites, really. And that seems to me could be a bit of a first time since they took over 3 years ago. Maybe a split in the dressing room there. Way they're going to go, I don't know. I have to do some more research over the weekend, what they're talking about. Hope they're enjoying themselves up in Queensland, though. They look quite nice, couple of beers on the beach and 30-degree heat.
It's a tough game, professional cricket, James. Obviously, darts World Championship started last night at Ali Pali. Littler won 3-0 his game. It was actually a lot closer than the scoreline would suggest. He wasn't at his sparkling best, but it was comfortable enough in the end.
Wouldn't say comfortable. Labanauskas played really well, average high 90s.
Well, he was never like 2 sets down or anything like that. So obviously winning that first set on the 5th leg was massive in terms of just giving him a bit of a cushion.
Yeah, no, we talked about it. He's going to be hard to beat over 7 sets.
So I think
it's on now. It's on now and day as well, isn't it? Day 3 matches during the day, 3 in the evening. I think it is. For foreseeable future, it's always good fun to watch. There's a couple of games, and Humphries is out this weekend as well, isn't he?
He's out on Saturday, I think.
So tomorrow, yeah.
There was some NFL last night. Let's just touch on the Monday night game, which we obviously haven't covered. So the Chargers beat Philly in overtime in the end. I mean, the story of the game really was an atrocious performance from Jalen Hurts. Not a huge surprise. Just not a quarterback I overly rate, to be honest. His numbers have been very distorted by his running talents and the tush push in the last couple of years. He's proving his passing in particular this year is proving to be somewhat troublesome. Be interesting to see what happens with that going forward. There was a game last night where Tampa Bay lost 29-28 to Atlanta. It was interesting for a couple of reasons. One was it's another game Tampa Bay have found a way to lose. I mean, I think they're 7-7 now. They lost to the Saints last weekend. You know, they should really be 9-5 at worst. But they're 7-7. So there was a situation late in that game where Atlanta were 3rd and 28 and converted the first down, which, you know, is not good from Tampa. Obviously, Pitts will make all the headlines with his 3 touchdowns. So if you're in fantasy leagues and you're up against Pitts, then, you know, I think you're in a whole world of trouble this week.
Wasn't him on? No, he's on my bench this week.
Good. That's what we like to hear. So obviously NFL will continue this weekend, and we'll touch on this weekend's games in a little bit.
What about the granddad's back?
Rivers.
First granddad back in the NFL.
Wow. Have you seen how many kids he's got?
44 years age. Back. Rodgers must be thinking, what am I doing? 42. Got another couple of years left.
We don't need more Rodgers. In the NBA, OKC 24-1 now, and they are on track to match or better Golden State's record. I honestly think it's a story that will get more and more traction. They are blowing teams out. It matches the best ever 82 match span in NBA history. So effectively a season's worth of games. And what probably more impressively than that is that they've got the best point differential over an 82 game span as well. They are destroying teams at the moment. And I think what is interesting with them is they're destroying teams at the moment, and they have a whole series of high draft picks coming up in the next 3 or 4 seasons as well. So we could be looking at a dynasty type situation. So let's look at this week's Premier League matches. Some interesting ones. Obviously, Chelsea, Everton would be a pretty good starting place. Any thoughts, James?
I had a look at this last night and this morning, right? So I thought, Everton might go down there and have a bit of a chance. They've won the last couple of games, 2 clean sheets in a row. Chelsea, as we've discussed, haven't won the last 3. Casado's still out. Palmer will be back again. We talk about it. Interesting to see where he plays. Surely he's got to start after a week off in midweek. So I looked at it and was like, Everton might have a chance here. They haven't won against Chelsea in 30 Premier League games. That's a record for Chelsea at home against a Premier League team. Toffees haven't won 30. It's the second longest Premier League non-winning away against a team, behind Leeds, who've done it twice, which was 36. I was like, wow, I didn't realise it was that bad a record. I knew Moyes had a bad record in his first term as manager at Everton against the big clubs, but I didn't realise it was that bad. Everton have got fancy their chances there, surely. It's a good time to play Chelsea without Caicedo. 3 no wins in a row, playing well. And Grealish, obviously. Barry scored his first goal last weekend. It's a game that Everton should be targeting to at least get a point out of. And if you're David Moyes, you're thinking, well, come on then, let's go and not sit back and take the draws, try and beat them. Chances.
I
was surprised about that stat. 30 Premier League games in a row kind of thing they've lost. Well, they haven't won there.
I mean, I generally think those stats are some of the more pointless, irrelevant stats when you're looking forward to a game. I mean, what I would say is I think, what I mean by that is that, games that happened 5 years ago, hold almost no relevance to what will happen tomorrow. You could say even 2 years ago, obviously different managers, different players. What I would say is there are certain grounds that teams just struggle on. So I know Villa, for example, really struggle at Anfield. There's a whole series of sort of bogey type teams, and obviously Chelsea is a bogey team of sorts for Everton. I think Everton are interesting in that they've had 4 clean sheets in the last 5. Obviously, the only blip was that horror show against Newcastle, where they did concede after a minute, which I always think has a disproportionately big impact on a game. And I think Chelsea will be pretty tired on the back of an away trip to Atalanta. This is the last sort of team that I think Maresca would want to be facing. They'll sit back. They won't let Chelsea play in transitions. And I think they'll make life pretty tricky for Chelsea. Chelsea have struggled against teams who sit back, who, and Everton have enough threat on the break with, your likes in DA, that they can cause this Chelsea team, I think, quite a few problems.
Yeah, wouldn't be rushing into backing Chelsea at 8 to 11, whatever price they are.
In terms of other games, I think the most interesting game for me probably the weekend is the Tyne Weir derby. So Sunderland play Newcastle on Sunday afternoon. It's actually a shame that there's 4 quite interesting games all scheduled for 2:00 on Sunday afternoon. But Sunderland obviously been going great guns. Newcastle, having been away to Leverkusen, going to be interesting.
Yeah, and the 2 midfielders Sunderland didn't get booked in Xhaka and Siddiqui, so they're both available. I know a few Sunderland fans were praying they didn't get booked against Liverpool or Man City, so they're available. They're available. Sunderland at home are decent. You talked about it. The crowd will always be on their side. It's a tough place to go. First game against Newcastle in the league for nearly 10 years. I think it's March 2016 was the last time they played in the Premier League. The last game. They played an FA Cup game, didn't they, a couple of years back, that Newcastle ran out easy winners. I fancy Sunderland there to get something out of that game. I don't rate Newcastle. Joe Linton's not fit. He went off. Tough game again midweek away against Leverkusen, the 2-2 draw. Sunderland will fancy their chances against that one.
And I think what was interesting about Newcastle was that was pretty much their strongest 11 that they had out against Leverkusen. So obviously Hall, Livramento were both playing. They had the midfield 3 of obviously Bruno, Joel Linton and Tonali. Obviously Walter Marda, Gordon, it's as close to full strength for them as they get. So I it could be a bit of fatigue. Those first few minutes are going to be interesting for Newcastle, because I'm a massive believer in that these away European games, particularly the difficult ones. So the ones like Chelsea had this week at Atlanta, the one obviously Newcastle had at Leverkusen. I know from experience with Villa is that these are the ones, they're the European games that absolutely kill you for the Sunday games. You come back, you're tired, you're flat. It's so hard to get yourself up for a game against a team who is, rested, well motivated. It's, particularly if you're not resting players. So if you look at something like this week, Villa are lucky in that they were able to rest most of their team for the game that they had. So it shouldn't be as big an issue for Villa on Sunday against West Ham than it is for Newcastle and Chelsea. They had pretty much full strength teams. I think it's going to be so hard for them in those games.
Yeah, I think Sunderland will fancy their chances beating Newcastle. It's a good time to play them as well. Put some pressure on Ramsdale as well at corners. See him doing a bit more flapping. Not a good goalkeeper at all.
I think it feels inevitable that they're going to go back in for Trafford again in the summer.
They should go in for him in January if we're talking about transfers, which we'll probably do a podcast at some point in January. But yeah, that's a great shout. Trafford won't want to be at Man City, considering the World Cup's going on.
In terms of the title, I think you have to think that Arsenal win handsomely against this Wolves team. I just can't envisage any other scenario. The Palace Man City game is obviously going to be interesting. Is whether City can, it'd be very easy for them to drop points in that game. I am slightly amazed at what Pep is doing in terms of team selections at the moment. We keep talking about it, but he's not making any changes. He keeps picking the same 11 pretty much every week, every game, not every week, every game at the moment. And I do think fatigue will hit them sooner rather than later as well.
I think Reinders will come back in, on Sunday for Turkey.
I mean, that would make sense. But even just, like Ait Nouri, and I'm just slightly surprised that he's not mixing it up a little bit more.
We've also got the Scott Parker derby, Burnley versus Fulham. And then we've got the Ange Postecoglou derby as well, Forest versus Tottenham, which again, Forest had a relatively easy game against Utrecht last night. They rested a few more players than expected, but as we talked about on Monday, it's a big game for Dyche at home. They really need a win just to quieten down relegation noise there.
Well, to put into context in terms of relegation, last time I looked, they were about sixes on Betfair to be relegated. That number is a little bit shorter than Marinakis would like, to be honest. It's actually an interesting market because you have West Ham. So obviously, I think we can write off Wolves and Burnley. So really, it's a case of who the third team will be who get relegated. West Ham are clear favourites at the moment, with Leeds at 3.6, Forest at 6. West Ham at 2.2, and Forest a shorter price than, as I say, Marinakis would want. So it is important they start picking up results. And it'd be interesting. I'm intrigued to see what Tottenham turns up. Obviously, they've had some, more positive results recently, but I don't take anything from a win against Slavia Prague. In terms of, again, Frank's future, it might give the players a bit of confidence, but it doesn't move the needle in terms of his future at Spurs. All it does is, for me, would probably delay the inevitable.
Yeah, it's a tough game. Both had European games, obviously, midweek as well. So, yeah. Good games on Sunday.
And then, so from a relegation point of view, obviously Leeds are away at Brentford, which will be an interesting game. I'm intrigued by Leeds because obviously they've changed formation. I don't think this Leeds team is necessarily better than West Ham. I don't think there's huge amounts sort of between them. I'm slightly surprised that Leeds being 3.6 to get relegated. I don't think this is a great Leeds team.
West Ham are better than Leeds on paper, certainly, and West Ham I think got a better manager in Nuno to get them out of this. They've had 2 good results after their shambolic performance against Liverpool, which is looking worse by the day. They've had 2 good results, and it looks like the players are actually playing for him. So that's a good sign for him. We talked about it for Edwards, but
yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Villa actually get on against West Ham on Sunday, because West Ham were able to go to Brighton, set up pretty defensively, and I don't think Brighton, as touched on before, had a shot on goal until it was certainly after the 80th minute. West Ham did a very effective job at limiting Brighton. Now, just limiting teams isn't necessarily enough to get you enough points to get you out of the relegation zone. But a trip away to Brighton is not an easy game. So what I'm intrigued by more than anything is to see how positive Nuno's lineup or team is in terms of their intent against someone like Villa.
It won't be. He'll do exactly the same, in my view. He'll just sit back and he'll go on then, break us down, and we'll try and counter you on a transition. We'll try and nick it somewhere.
And it's definitely the way to play against Villa. I've no doubt about that. So I'm intrigued to see how that sort of plays out. Any other games of interest?
No. Is a short answer to that?
It's quite a quiet week in terms of sport generally. There is some golf at the moment in South Africa, the Alfred Dunhill Championships. The only interesting thing really about this tournament is it's not at Leopard Creek, which is obviously one of the more picturesque courses in world golf. It's actually in Joburg, and it is interesting that this morning Jaden Schaefer, who was one of the favourites for this tournament on the back of his 2nd place last week, he was a couple clear earlier when I looked, and I think this is pretty much a home game for him as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that sort of plays out. But we're getting into a very quiet time of year for golf. I think one thing that will be interesting to see in the next 2 or 3 weeks is if there's any movement in terms of Liv and players they try and sign or otherwise. There's rumours about Koepka not being happy in Liv and things like that. But something just to keep a vague eye on.
Well, Siwoo Kim and Sunjai Im have been rumoured to be joining Liv, haven't they? To make a new team. Is it a new team? I'm not sure, but
yeah. Well, I've always thought it makes sense that I've always sort of envisaged Liv as having teams based on sort of countries. So, you know, you might have the Japanese players sponsored by, say, I don't know, Bridgestone or something like that, and you have a Bridgestone team, or Australian players sponsored by Qantas, or, you know, whoever, you know, big sort of companies within those countries. Is the way I would see it eventually, but we're not there yet. We'll have to see how it sort of plays out. In terms of boxing, it's not huge amounts this weekend, I don't think, is there?
Joe Cordina's fighting in the early hours of Sunday morning GMT in California in a world title fight. Just waiting for the Mickey Mouse event between Joshua and Jake Paul next Friday night, a week tonight from Miami.
So you'll be watching, James, yeah?
I think it's going to be on at ungodly hour in the morning for our time here. So I think it's going to start at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So Friday night, Saturday morning. So no. Plenty of people will.
It's on Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah.
So anyone can watch it with Netflix. Obviously, we have NFL this weekend. I mean, we really are getting to the business end of the season now. Some quite interesting games. So Chargers fresh off their Monday night win against Eagles. They face Mahomes and Kansas City. Kansas obviously need to win every game from here on in to have any chance, and even then, it's not guaranteed. See 2 contenders in Buffalo and New England. Pretty much a pick 'em game.
Now,
Interesting test.
Tonight.
Well, it's interesting, I would say, for two reasons. One is I'm not sure Buffalo are great, but New England have had an incredibly soft schedule so far. So it's tough to really get a sort of handle on how good or otherwise they are. So facing the Bills is, it's a proper test for them. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. We have Ravens at Bengals. Obviously, Ravens, and Lamar, it's been pretty ugly recently. Can they turn things around? It was interesting to hear. Did you hear Burrow's comment?
Yeah, that was slightly worrying comments for him, Joe Burrow, overnight, talking about he's lost fun out of the game, and if he's not enjoying it, then you have to look at himself. That reminded me a bit of Andrew Luck kind of thing back in the day when he quit at the age of 30.
I think younger. Well, if that.
Yeah, I didn't like those comments from Burrow at all.
I think what it shows you more than anything is just the, we take for granted players turning up every week. What you don't see is the struggle behind the scenes in terms of fitness, health, and what it takes to actually get on that pitch every week. But he didn't sound particularly enamored by it. So it'll be interesting to see how he does and how the Bengals do. We have Lions at the Rams. Again, two sort of playoff contending teams. Again, I'm intrigued to see how the Rams do. And then we've got Green Bay at Denver and the Colts at the Seahawks. The Colts are obviously interesting in that Daniel Jones got injured last week. And obviously, you touched on earlier, they're bringing Rivers in. So it's going to be a long, long afternoon, I think, for the Colts. Any other sports to talk about, James?
No, you've got your normal rugby. The European Cup games are on. Leicester playing Leinster tonight might be a game I might check into, but not really. You got horse racing from Cheltenham today and tomorrow. There's a Triumph Hurdle tune up on tomorrow afternoon. The big racing actually is from Sha Tin in Hong Kong on Sunday morning. All the international jockeys are out there. Big prize money, big horses running. Los Angeles, the Lion in Winter for Coolmore, etc. That's the big horse racing of the weekend, is down in Hong Kong. Apart from that, not really much.
Sports personality of the year, James?
Oh, my favourite, next Thursday night. Set the Alarm, BBC. Can't wait. It's 6 contenders now.
Is Rory a good price at 1.7?
He was a very good price at 2.4 or something, wasn't he? He should win that.
It'd be a shocker if he doesn't win that, surely, to God.
Considering the other contenders, and I probably need to be politically correct here, Chloe Kelly never started a game in the European Championships this summer. And she was still his second favourite. Never started a game and scored 2 penalties.
But did you not know that one of her penalties was hit faster than any male football was hit, James, or some nonsense?
Yeah, check that speed gun, because
correct.
I'd imagine Szoboszlai's free penalty against Inter Milan is faster than anything any lady's ever kicked. Just one point I want to bring up is Kevin Sinfield, not really sport related, but his achievement in recent week, doing 7 ultra marathons in 7 days over UK and Ireland, has been nothing short of remarkable. He is an individual that is a true friend, is what he calls a true friend, obviously, for MMD, for his mate Rob Burrow, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago now. His way he dedicates his life to his mate is something to aspire to for a lot of people. He is some individual. So, yeah, respect to Kevin Sinfield a lot and what he does for MMD. It's a horrible disease, and we see more and more of it in the public eye. So, yeah, fair play to him.
I would certainly echo that. I think it shows you just how tough and these top level sportsmen are. They're so mentally tough. Okay, I think let's wrap it up there. Enjoy your weekend, James, and we will reconvene on Monday morning.
Yeah, Liverpool might not lose, but they probably will lose.
We can all but hope, James. We can all but hope.
All right. Speak to you on Monday. All right.